Welcome to the David Spisak Show. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me. I'm very confident that you're going to be glad that you did for a lot of reasons, but this is incredibly timely because it is yet another one of those stories or another subject matter expert who we're going to have the ability to discuss that outage, that hack, and what the implications were and what the future ramifications were. But more importantly, I just think that you're going to be delighted to learn, to meet, and to learn about my next guest. And my guest today is Yaron Rosen, who is the CEO of Fuse Autotech. And Yaron, before I move forward, I just wanted to welcome you and thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much, David. It's an honor to be here.
Well, it's an honor to have you here. And Yaron, as I started to share with people, I always endeavor to deliver as much value as possible. And part of that, I endeavor to take the pressure off of me and be able to deliver on that promise by bringing really great, interesting guests, thought leaders, and innovators like yourself. You're obviously an entrepreneur and many other things. But before I get too deep, I want to allow everybody who's listening to have the ability to know who you are and what your background is. And I want to move forward into having some discussions about Fuse and what Fuse Autotech does for dealers, what it's meant for dealers, and also a little bit about the CDK outage itself. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
All right. So let's start with this. Yaron, if you'd be so kind, give us, all of us, your background. I know that you served in the military and thank you so much for your service. But if you would give us a background, how did you end up in the military? How long did you stay? And I know you rose to a very high rank.
Yeah, it's something I didn't really plan. I joined the Air Force when I was 18 years old. As I mentioned, I stepped out of the ocean straight into my uniform because I was a surfer boy, spending most of my high school time not at school, actually. But
wait, hold on. Wait, you can't just gloss over that. Wait a minute. First of all, where was this? What location were you surfing?
Well, all around the world. My first vertigo experience was in Maui, in Lahaina Beach. So I guess that sums up the height of my surfing experience. That was my dream, to surf there in Hawaii before I joined the military. And I did that and got my first vertigo. And I always ask that question because people think I got it somewhere up in the air. But actually, my first vertigo was just slamming under the water.
You don't hear that. Yeah, we were here.
Yeah, if you surf, if you do a big mistake and when you surf, you can actually end up with a vertigo under the water and the black, and the bubbles and everything, and find yourself upside down, not realizing that you're upside down, which is very funny.
Only funny now. It wasn't funny then. After the night. Yeah. And were you surfing around the world? Because you mentioned you're in high school. Were you in a family situation where you guys moved quite a bit, or was it just you after high school you started moving around and surfing?
I was very lucky as a young man. My father worked for startups, Cytex and digital back then, and all sorts of companies that mostly disappeared, but they were the first ones in the world. And I actually graduated from high school in Japan, the American school in Japan, in Tokyo. And then on the way back home, we went through Hawaii because that was my dream before I go back to my service, mandatory service in Israel. And that's where I did my service, joined when I was 18. And somehow, I don't know, time flies. And I ended up serving for over 32 years. Most of my time I did as a pilot, flew mostly helicopters, but also, airplanes. With the higher you are in the ranks, you fly all sorts of fighters and jets and all these things to be better, doing your job better. And what you get from that, I think, the Air Force DNA is very special, especially in Israel. The Israeli Air Force has a very strong DNA culture of people, process, and technology. And that is something that I took with me to my the last part of my service. I actually served as a general under the chief of the general staff, as the chief of the IDF Cyber Staff. I went for an interview, and the chief of the Air Force sent me to an interview to the chief of the general staff, and I knew him very well. Actually, he's a member of the Knesset now. So he went to politics, and he said, "Yaron, I want you to be the chief of the IDF Cyber Staff." And I said, Gadi, what did you have to drink this morning? Whatever you had, I want to have it as well. It sounds great, but I'm an Air Force guy. What do you want from me? And it actually was a good story he told me, because I just finished a very interesting transformation project that I led in the Air Force, transforming the Air Force and expanding the operational capacity of the Air Force because of various, decade-long processes that were going through the Air Force, which is a very strong part of the IDF. And the cyber realm was going through a very similar experience. Cyber was expanding to everywhere, not only for intelligence, but also for attack and for defense. And actually, it was a very interesting time because at the same time, most of the militaries in the world were going through the same process. Even in the US, Cyber Command, the known Cyber Command, was born only 2010, and I was 2015 appointed to this job. So the great Cyber Command was 5 years old, and I was lucky enough to work with our very good friends in the US military. Admiral Mike Rogers was my peer, and I had the real pleasure and honor of working with him and with his Deputy General Kevin McLaughlin, and it was just a really, really interesting experience. I was lucky enough to learn this realm through like I call it a speed doctorate. I was very lucky to learn from the best and the brightest, and all the doors open, and you have to learn very, very fast. And after 4 months, I realized that what I know from the Air Force, people, process, and technology, applies to cyberspace exactly the same. And if you take a good strategy and people, process, and technology, it really is the same. You just have to figure out the physics of the realm you're working with. And now we'll reach auto, and I'll get to that, but it's the same.
So, Yaron, and I want to make sure that we put a little bit of a placeholder there for everybody, because people, process, and technology, it'll apply to a conversation that we'll have, I'm sure, as we get into the auto side of the business. And I'm interested for myself, selfishly, and for everybody, to learn, how do you go from that life, that career, to ending up in the retail automotive space here. But I also want to put a placeholder on it because I want to touch on what happened, what transpired with CDK. They suffered a massive attack, a hack, which turned into a ransomware type of attack situation, and an outage that was extended over more than 2 weeks. So to this day, we still don't have every dealer back up and running, and I know that even the dealers that are up and running are not really back to business as usual because a number of their key integrations are still not back in place. I want to make sure I touch on that because I just had this feeling that product people and technology is going to have an awful lot to do with your assessment and your thoughts when it comes to that CDK outage. But before we get into that, so after this esteemed career that you have in the military and this rather unexpected, I should say, move over into the cyber security world, you somehow end up taking on a role, very big position as CEO of Fuse Autotech. How did you get into retail automotive, and how did that particular position come about for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was a transition. I started actually when I retired. I actually was dreaming about entrepreneurship when I was 30 years old. I really wanted to, leave. I was already 12 years in service, and somehow it probably not somehow, but it probably was interesting enough. I stayed. I stayed, and squadron commander and all these things that were very, very attractive and very rewarding. And then 20 years later, I retired, and I founded 2 startups. The first 2 were in cybersecurity. The first one was mainly working with governments. And after 4 years as the CEO, at the 0 to 1 phase of a startup, which is having 1 person, 2 person, 3 person, all the way to 100 people in the company, I wanted to step out and do it again, but with the private sector. And I did that and I founded the second company. The first one was Toka, working with governments, and the second one was Illuminant, which I founded and became the chairman, and my partner was the CEO. And after 2 years in that, I sort of had it with cybersecurity. And the reason was back then that I really wanted to see change in the real world in what I do, because cyber is just the way the culture of selling cyber is very much like insurance. You know what I mean? You have to sell. You sell people, and you convince them that if they buy you, nothing will happen. And it's so frustrating. I really wanted to make something happen, even though Toka, my first startup, is very not only intelligence but operational capabilities in cyberspace. Still, it is something you do not deal with as the vendor, because the operator, the government, does it, and you're sort of, you're away from it because it's government, right?
On the periphery. Yeah.
I met Ellie Wordman that founded Vroom, and today he has a very successful venture capital called Pico Ventures. And we were introduced, and I was in Mexico, actually, in Mexico City. And he said that there's a company in Minneapolis called Fuse. And he said, it's in the auto industry, and I really urge you to go up there and see what an auto dealer is. And it's on the same longitude. So I said, hey, why not? I'm on the same time zone. Let me fly up there. I didn't realize how long it would take to get there, but still. I got there.
That'd be a good 6 hours, isn't it?
Yeah, a good 6 hours, exactly. Met Andrew Walzer, which I really
extraordinary dealer, extraordinary family. Yeah.
Andrew and Paul Walzer are really extraordinary, very successful dealers. And again, I didn't know this industry at all. And before the meeting, I read a lot about it, and wow, I mean, the world opened to me. Wow, this is a huge operation. And then it was a Saturday, and I stepped into the Toyota dealership.
Oh man.
And it hit me. And what happened there was 2 things at the same time. One is, it looked exactly like a flight line of a squadron. Like there's a PAM chief, which is the person that sends out, is responsible sending out all the aircrafts, and just dealing with so many young people, and everybody needs to know what to do. And it was so physical and so like a small factory, right? Needs to work, clockwork. And then I saw the complexity and how much transparency he does not have, and how much visibility he does not have, and how much talent the general manager has or needs in order to run this operation on a Saturday in a Toyota dealership that sells hundreds of cars each month. And I stepped up to finance office, and I saw this young woman sitting in front of screens, just like in Wall Street. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she said, well, I'm financing a deal. And like, why do you have 5 screens in front of you? Oh, I need this for this, this for this. I didn't understand anything, right? It just was like, and all the screens were archaic. Like it looked like ERP from the 80s or something, like little fonts and all these things. I'm like, oh my God. And literally, I fell in love with the problem and as I always tell young entrepreneurs that I talk to, I always tell them your greatest asset is falling in love with the problem, because you are going to, you're going to work your behind really hard when you're an entrepreneur in a startup, and you better be really in love and really passionate about solving the problem.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there. I'm not going to attempt to tackle all of that because there is a lot there. But, a couple things I'll just bring up. Number one is it never ceases to amaze me how the vast majority of people that are outside of our industry, how their perceptions of the industry at large, which are largely wrong and have been perpetuated through a lot of stigmatisms, stereotypes, and so forth, and how much they underestimate the sophistication level, the complexity of this business, and what it takes to create a successful organization. I remember I had the good fortune of working in the Smythe organization, Bill Smythe, legendary dealer. And I remember that there used to be a good department store, big national department store, Mervyn's. And the guy that started, his name is Mervyn Morris. And it's funny how so many people romanticize at some point about becoming a car dealer. And Mervyn wanted to become a car dealer. And so he bought a Cadillac store. And Bill Smythe said, you might be underestimating. He was like, no problem. I've got, hundreds of thousands of stores across the country. I've been in retail my whole life. That guy was out of business in a year. 1 year. The guy that started Ross was out of business. I can't even count how many professional athletes have come into this business and have failed epically. There's been some, a very small number who have done extraordinarily well, but they are the exception of the rule. And in each and every case, Yaron, I think it's because they did massively underestimate it, number one. But number two, the other thing I wanted to pull out of what you said is I think they made a terminal error. They fell in love not with the problem. They fell in love with what they romanticized about. They fell in love with, oh my God, I'm going to do this. I'm going to, have all these cars to drive. I want to, make a ton of money. And you brought up something that I don't know that I've ever heard anybody bring it up in that way. And so I really wanted to make sure that I did everything I can to amplify that, because anytime you made me think of this immediately, and I thank you for this, you can't fall in love with a problem without also falling in love and being all in on solving the problem. You can't, right? And so I'm just curious, as you've entered this business that you got into because of that, because you fell in love with this problem, have you continued to use that approach? And have you seen people in Fuse Autotech or people in dealerships that you work with start to approach things the same way, where they're falling in love with the problem and therefore in a much better situation to be able to commit to solving that problem? And once they do, of course, they're going to get to a high level of success. How has that been transformative for you since you've been in this business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that you really want to be able to sort of fall in love with the general manager and how his life is when he wakes up in the morning. And I remember when we deployed last September, September 1st, actually 2 weeks prior, but that's when it became formal, when we deployed our new version of Fuse Transact, which is the industry's first point of sale for dealerships. And I'll explain that later, what it means. I came to the first dealer, the general manager, Bryson, St. Paul Subaru at Walzers. And I told him, look, Bryson, I'm going to tell you something. We're going to talk at the end of the transformation. I'm not giving you a technology. I'm giving you, 3 things which are a culture change. And if you take it like that, it will change how you are successful as a general manager. And when I got his email that said, Yaron, you were right, ! That was the greatest, reward.
What was he referring to? So in other words, he was saying, listen, I didn't look at this as many dealers, don't mean to offend anybody, but I think many dealers, many managers, they see technology solutions as instant fixes, right? I'm just going to bring this in, add water, so to speak, and everything's going to become better. And you said something again that's very critical. Many of these solutions, first of all, 100% of them don't operate and don't succeed on their own. They don't and they can't. They have to have participation and engagement from the user. But also, many of them, in order to be optimized, require some level of culture change. And so when you got that email, the smile that came on your face, what did that mean to you? That they just went all in, they bought into it?
Yeah, I think it was really a moment of joy because, we really wanted to make this point. And I think that I keep talking about this with the Fuse employees and the management. Like, what type of company do we want to be? Like, when I came to the first meeting talking about how I envision the Fuse platform, the Fuse Transact point of sale system, I asked them, I asked them to raise a hand. Okay, who did a CRM integration without names, no names? And everybody picked up their hand because everybody did some kind of CRM integration. And I said, who did it in less than 6 months? No one. Who did it between 6 to 9 months? A few people raised their hands. Who did it between 9 to 12 months? Most people. Who did it between 12 and 18 months? The rest of the people. And I said very clearly, if we don't do this in 1 month, no more than 1 month, if we do this in more than 1 month, we're going to fail. We will never be able to scale. They will not adopt it. It needs to be easy, fast, intuitive, and it needs to work just like any other cashier that you implement. You connect it to the electricity, it logs in, you put in credentials, whatever you are, and it works for you. And it's easy to use. And you log in one time and it does the whole deal for you. That's a point of sale system. Now, we don't have that at dealerships. And that's Fuse's challenge. That's why we wanted to go there, unlike the other companies, again, no names, which started as digital retail or other things that are going into lending or like they're all around us. I really want to be the Switzerland. I don't care who your CRM, your DMS is. I don't care who your loan origination system is. I want to integrate. I'm the Switzerland. I'm the point of sale system. You want to work with this one? Work with this one. You want to work with that one? Go ahead. I want to be the point of sale system that connects to most, if not all, and we are compatible with over, 85% of the market today with all the big ones, CDK, Tekion, Reynolds, all these integrations built in for, DMS and CRM, and all the desking, credit and compliance, F&I menu, e-sign documents. We have part of them are integrations and part of them are built into the point of sale systems, or the desking and menu are Fuse. So you can get rid of that, and the rest is integrations. Once you understand what a point of sale system is and you get used to it, you kind of say, and that's what I wanted from that general manager, like, did that change your life or not? And what I wanted to see, the reason I smiled when he sent me that email is because, wow, we actually changed the life of one general manager. And what I want to do, my passion when I wake up in the morning, and the whole company's passion, is to change every general manager's life, one general manager at a time. Just again.
So let's start breaking this down for folks that are not familiar with Fuse Autotech, or even familiar with when you say, first point of sale system, or cash register. I mean, we all understand when we go to whatever, Walgreens or a Target or any grocery store, and there's going to be a point where you go up to that cashier, you're going to start ringing things up, and they're going to be using a point of sale system, right? So what does that look like in a dealership? Because dealerships, again, have so many moving pieces and are so much more complex than simply going and buying water at a grocery store. So when you say a point of sale system for a dealership, what exactly does Fuse Autotech do for the dealership, and how does it differ, Yaron, from what they're doing today? Because today, somebody sits down, I'm going to use some type of desking software, whether it's through the CRM or DMS. I'm going to desk the deal, either finance, lease, or cash. I'm going to put it into F&I. F&I is going to key everything in they need to key in. They're going to ask you to come in. We're going to do all the contracting, DMV, and that type of thing, and then off you go. What does it look like with Fuse Autotech? How is it different?
When I urge your listeners is to check out what mortgage point of sale system is. Like you mentioned, retailers like whatever pharmacy or supermarket, even restaurants, right? Like have a point of, they have a cashier. So basically, what does it do? It simplifies the checkout. So from the moment, everything in between the CRM and the DMS is the checkout. And I think we spoke about this when we spoke about the CDK hack. The customer doesn't even know what a CRM and a DMS is.
Could care less.
They couldn't care less. You can't tell them, oh, my CRM had my DMS had an attack or a ransomware. Hey, I came here to buy a car. What are you talking about? I heard about restaurant. I mentioned the restaurant story. Like when you come out of a restaurant, do you know who their CRM or DMS is? You don't care. So the point of the CRM is bring customers, right? That's how you bring customers into buying a car. The DMS is you close the deal. Now let's manage accounting and how you pay your employees, and goes all the way to servicing and all that. Okay. So the point of sale system is about closing the deal. Now, as you've mentioned, a car deal is a little bit more complex, but other markets have done this. I mentioned mortgage. There's a mortgage point of sale. That's how you do this online today. And I think that we came out of COVID sort of confused, thinking that we can close deals, everything online, but apparently people like touching cars and coming, into dealerships.
Seeing who they're dealing with.
Yeah, they want to know who they're dealing with, and they want to touch the car, maybe test drive. And even if they're returning customers, you want to be able to close the deal from within the dealership. Hey, John, how are you? Yeah. Can I buy another car? Yeah. How much will be the payment? Maybe you don't have to physically come in, but you still need the system that will close the deal. That's the point of sale system. Now, today, in order to do that, you need so many logins, so many screens, so many passwords, let alone the cybersecurity threat. Like every login is another landscape for hackers, right? Like, make no mistake, that's how they live. When you have one system, the landscape is much smaller for these hackers. But again, put that aside. Let's put cybersecurity aside and talk about it later. What do you have? You have everything inside. So you have desking on the same screen, credit, application, and compliance. There's so much compliance. This is before the car's rule implications that you need to have seamlessly. You shouldn't be thinking about compliance. Compliance needs to be built in. You have the F&I menu. And then you have the document signing. Actually, the funny story about the Toyota dealership, I saw the front desk young woman running back and forth to an office. And I asked the general manager, where's she going? And he said, well, she went to the printer. They're printing the deals. And I was like, no, you can't be serious. They're actually printing paper? All the paper for that? Yeah, we need all. I can't believe it. This is 2023 and we're still printing? Forget the waste. Forget the time it's so consuming. How many more salesmen do you need in your dealership if you need to do all these time consuming things and all these logins? So the efficiency of a salesperson can go up about 35, 50% just by using a point of sale system.
So I got to pause right there, please. So Yaron, I want to be clear for everybody, because I was going to ask this question. First of all, does Fuse Autotech, does it rely or not rely? It doesn't matter whether it's a single point of sale, single point of contact, one price, not one price. If somebody's using assistant managers, to turn deals from salespeople. I mean, there's so many different environments today within dealerships. Does it work well with all of those, or is it really created for a single point of contact where the salesperson who I'm dealing with is working with an iPad that has Fuse Autotech that's guiding us through this seamless, easy process all the way from the time that I start working with them to the time I actually purchase the car? Can you just go into that a little bit, please?
Oh yeah, that's super question. I didn't mention that. Sorry.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm here for, my friend. I got your back. Honestly, I don't know, so I'm curious. I always tell you I got the curiosity of a 5-year-old, so I have to know. It's killing me.
Oh yeah, so I don't want you to die. This fire. I want to save your life here. So thank you for the question. Fuse is built for every type of dealer. That's the beauty of Fuse. We don't care if it's single point of contact or traditional, how many stops you want. We customize the screens and the stops, and we give every person in that sales process the relevant access to relevant information. So whether you are the salesperson, the desk manager, the F&I manager, whatever, each one of them gets his things. And the beauty of it is that they're all looking at the same screen. They're just handing off the customer, and the customer doesn't need to wait because everything is connected and all the information, there's no double entry, nothing. It's all.
So as a salesperson, you come up, I have an iPad. Yes.
Yeah.
And I've got a Fuse, and I sit down with you. I can guide you in the process, or I could essentially say, here, you take the steering wheel, you guide the process. We could do it any way you want. Whatever I'm doing is transparent to the sales management team. They could see who I'm with, what I'm doing, where I am in the process. But everybody is literally all connected, and everybody has two-way visibility on what's going on. And I can run that process however I choose, whatever my sales environment is, with whatever client I want to, and they can basically dictate what the flow is. But regardless, I have this, for lack of a better term, all this is fused together, no pun intended, so that it's simple and it's fast and it's easy. And to your point earlier, the customer doesn't have to worry about the compliance. The salesperson doesn't have to worry about compliance. Everybody can focus on what really everybody should be focused on. The salesperson taking care of the customer, delivering a wow experience, and the customer just enjoying a seamless experience. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's exactly how it is. And the beauty of it is that, some of the, and this is me learning the, car dealers and what they like and what they don't like. Some of them, you come to them and they say, hey, exactly like you sort of asked, but in a different way. They say, look, I know how to do my business. We're like, I'm making good money. Don't tell me how to make money. And I say, you don't need to do anything different from what you're doing. I'm just going to give you a point of sale system that's going to get you, as you do your business, much more efficient. That's all.
Yeah.
You transform into a more modern retail experience, whatever that means. For one, it's this, for the other one, it's something else. You can do whatever you want because it's flexible enough to change between models.
So, yeah, no, I accidentally muted, but that's fantastic. So how many, and thank you for wanting to make sure you save my life. I am more interested in how many GM's lives have you saved so far? Your mission is to help save their life, transform their life, to create a significantly better environment, really, for everybody in the organization, from their customers that they're obsessed with serving to their associates, who hopefully they're also obsessed with making things as easy as possible for them to do their jobs, and everybody else who's involved in the process. How many clients does Fuse have since you rolled out just a short while ago in September?
Yeah, we have over 100 rooftops.
Wow.
Which is,
so it's moving along at a pretty good pace.
Yeah, it's really moving along. And, I must, I don't like bragging, but we
go ahead. I give you full license to brag. This is
we're very proud. And again, CDK, the CDK hack was a great example of why a point of sale system makes sense. And I'll explain that a little bit more. But during the hack, just the Toyota dealership in 2 weeks sold 200 cars. And same did JM Lexus, which
like nothing happened. By the way, I want to make sure people understand. So what's important to understand for anybody listening, if you're in the car business, you know exactly what happened, whether you're a CDK client or not. The CDK clients were completely knocked offline. They had to revert to going back to doing everything manually. They literally did it on Post-it notes, sticky notes, Excel spreadsheets, handwritten ROs. I mean, it was old school, and they had to figure it out. And to their credit, they did, but they did it, unfortunately in the aftermath, we could all see that it's going to cost about what's estimated to be about 8% of a decline year over year in new car sales, when we typically have been up 3.5% this year. Financially, it's been asserted that it's about $1 billion cost to dealerships around the country thus far. And I've got dealerships that I work with across the country. Some of them actually had an amazingly good month. In other words, pretty darn close to what they would normally do. Others were off by 30, 40%, and everything in between. So for people that are not in this industry, from my understanding, I want you to please share this. The Fuse Autotech customer, people that had your solution, because of what you said earlier, Yaron, don't care who your DMS is, don't care who your CRM is. We're just going to create this seamless, easy, standalone point of sales system that allows you to be able to independently continue to do what you need to do with your client. As a result, I want to make sure I'm not out of turn. But if I'm hearing you right, the Toyota store, JM Lexus, and the other clients that you have, it's as if nothing ever happened. They were able to continue doing business on the front end of their store, not service and parts, but on the front end of their store, they were able to continue doing business as if literally nothing happened. Is that accurate?
That is 100% accurate. And, you know, the vision is to have this Fuse point of sale system for the whole life cycle of the car, including servicing. But that is down the road. Now, the point I want to make is very important. I'm not saying that anyone cannot get hacked. We can get hacked as well. But if you have a point of sale system, what are the chances that that is different from your DMS and CRM, right? We spoke about monolithic approach versus
microservice. Yeah.
So if you have a separate CRM, separate point of sale, and a separate DMS, if, God forbid, you're hacked, the DMS is the redundancy to the point of sale and vice versa. So if the point of sale system goes down, you can still close deals on the DMS. It's not as easy because otherwise you won't need a point of sale system, but you can still run the business and not lose all
the way we've always done it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And vice versa. The reason the customers that had Fuse can continue outward facing, the customers didn't know, and they don't care who the DMS is. They continue to do business. Fuse saves all the information. When the API with the relevant DMS will be open again, by the way, CDK did not open yet, the API, it's not open. I cannot reconnect to them. We will spill everything back, no information lost. You don't have to write the books again and everything. Everything is stored in the point of sale system. It's not lost.
Yeah, so this is a big key. This is super big. So super important. So again, for anybody listening, if you're in the business, you're not in the business, while dealerships were having to conduct business manually, guess what their business offices are having to do today? They're literally having to find all those scraps of paper, and they're going to have to key in every repair order, every deal, every finance sale, everything manually, and then hope to God that they didn't miss anything. And then they're going to have to try to somehow create a accurate financial statement. You know, in our business offices across the country, you got to give them as much support and love and understanding and grace as you can right now, because it's a massive undertaking. But if I'm hearing you right, Yaron, what you're saying is a Fuse Autotech dealer that found themselves in that unfortunate situation, as Walzer did as a CDK client in some of their stores. In those stores, all that business that happened on the front end on Fuse Autotech, once the integration does open up, that information is going to flow, as it always has, into the correct areas of CDK, and it's going to populate where it should populate for your financial statement, and nobody is having to go back and find pieces of paper and key things in. Is that accurate?
100%.
That's massive.
Yeah. That is why the separation of systems is so important. And again, you might say, yeah, but I can do that without a point of sale system. I can store it inside my e-documents, whatever. But it is so hard to do all of this together, and all the other inefficiencies that I mentioned, right? The small inefficiencies, the logins, the compliance, the connection between the systems. So the re-entering of information and the mistakes you made, the guardrailing, the training. How much training do your employees need to have? And what's the turnover? How many times they have to teach people again and again? And one system is very intuitive. It's made for Gen Z because it's made by Gen Z. It's made for the salesperson, the people that actually use it. And it's made for small and large dealerships alike, because what it does very beautifully, because we have all of the journey inside the point of sale system, inside the cashier, we can see everything that's going on. So if there's a really good salesperson inside the dealership, everyone can learn from him, because we're timing every step. Hey, this guy's doing desking in 4 minutes. How is he doing that? Hey, let's do a reflection. Let's teach it. Let's teach everyone. You stand on the podium and tell us how you're doing your thing. And you be the trainer for the next one and the next one, et cetera, et cetera. That's the culture change that I was talking about. And that's my real passion. That's Fuse's real passion. We want to really change how a dealer really focuses on what really matters. That the customers step out and say, wow, I actually liked buying this car and not spending 3 hours. The same dealership, GM that I mentioned, Bryson, he does 40% of his deals under 1 hour. Under 1 hour from yes to done.
That's impressive. Now, a couple of things. It's so beyond impressive, and it's interestingly, it's a benchmark that people from privates to publicly owned companies have been chasing for years now. I was just dealing with a group of salespeople, and one of the things I shared with them is, when you talk to the highest performing salespeople in the land, people like Ali Rita, out of Dearborn, Michigan, this is the guy that holds the record for the most number of cars sold in a year by one person, over 1,500 cars. Now, that's 125 cars a month. That's more than the average dealership sells in a month. This is one person. And I'll never forget, the first time that I really sat down and spoke with Ali about how he transformed from, he was already great salesperson selling 30. I mean, how many salespeople sell 30 in this country? It's a very small percentage. But when he found out somebody was selling 70, it just made him crazy. And he thought, man, if this guy could do it, I could do it. But the first thing that came to his brain was interestingly similar to what you said. And early on, when you said, I fell in love with the problem. Well, he fell in love with the problem. You know what the problem was? Taking too long. If I take as long as I'm currently taking to sell a car, there's no way I can go from 30 to 70. I have to figure out a way to reduce the time per sale. So what you just shared with people, that out, because everybody wants to sell more cars, Yaron, everybody. But we always think in traditional terms. Well, we need to advertise more. Well, we need to close more car deals. Yes, we need to do a better job with our leads. Yes, we need to trade. All of the above. You got to do all those. But let me share with you guys something else. If you don't figure out how to reduce the time it takes to do a car deal, you are always going to be limited. There is that limiting step where if you look at the number of salespeople you have, the finance managers you have, the desk people you have, there is a limit to how many car deals they can do the throughput. And I love what I'm hearing here, because what if they could cut that time in half? Well, cutting the time in half of each car deal, Yaron, sounds like it's putting me in a position to literally double my throughput. And now all I have to do is grow into that throughput. Is that fair?
Yeah. And you could do also another thing. You can lower your expenses. We have a dealer in Mesa that had a huge F&I office and a 15 salesperson sales team. And he cut everything by 60% and still sells the same number of cars. What does that mean with what he has left after selling? Like, his profit, what he goes home with, is much better. He's selling in a much easier way. His employee turnover is very low. Everybody is much happier. They're making more on bonuses because each one is selling more. and he just doesn't need such a big of a team. Now, some dealers say, you know what, just like you asked from the other end, I want to sell more. Some people can sell more, but some people can't. So however you want to make, if you want to make more money on the selling side, it allows you to do that. And if you want to be more efficient, it can let you do that. And on both ends, it will make you work in a much more easier way, in a better DNA, build a learning dealership, a fast learning dealership, a place that people love coming to in the morning and selling cars and serving their customers. And the customers will return because they love your dealership. They won't even need to go into the dealership next year because Fuse allows you to close deals remotely. Everything. The whole.
Yeah, that's a really cool thought. That's a cool thought because, once I take somebody prospectively through the Fuse process, and as I was sharing with this other group too, you'll sell a lot more cars once everything's based not on leads, but on relationships, right? Every one of the top performing salespeople in the country will say the same thing. They lean and they rely on relationships. They don't take lead. They don't need lead. Yeah. They need to create their own opportunities, create the relationships, deliver a spectacular experience, and then people come back and they send their friends and everything else. So you're exactly right that, it makes a lot of sense that if somebody goes through that superior experience, a couple things are going to happen. Once somebody goes through a superior experience, nobody wants to go backward. They're never going to go back to the old way. But two, they have gone through the experience and you've been able to create a relationship. They could hypothetically buy the next car just by saying, hey, you're on, I'm ready. I'm going to get that car that I mentioned for my son, for my daughter, for my husband, for my wife, whatever. Can we go ahead and do the same process? Yeah, done. Just like that. That's very cool. We got just a few minutes left. We touched on the CDK outage and the fact that for your customers, there was no outage. It was business as usual on the front end anyways. I have to ask you, based on your experience, your cybersecurity experience, do you have any thoughts in terms of lessons that can be learned in terms of whether as a dealer or whether as a vendor or big vendor like CDK, what we could possibly do different? Because, many people are saying, hey, anybody and everybody could be hacked. I had somebody on that call. I was doing a call, was with a Wall Street firm, and this IT person from an IT company literally said this statement: it's not a matter whether or if every dealer is going to have a ransom attack. It's when. And I looked at him and I was like, oh, you that's preposterous. Just think that there's 30,000 dealers out there, 18,000 new car franchise dealers. Every dealer is going to have a ransomware attack. Okay. I think that's patently false. First of all. Secondly, yes, anybody can be hacked, but to me, it's the equivalent of, somebody wants to rob a house. First thing they do is go if they want to rob a car, they check if the car is unlocked. If they want to rob a house, okay, there's no alarm. I shake the door handle. That one's locked. I'm going to go to the next one. I shake the door handle. Okay, that one's got cameras. I'm going to go past it. I'm going to shake the door handle. This one's unlocked. I'm going to go into that one. So in other words, yes, anybody can be hacked, possible, but is it likely if somebody has, SOC 1, SOC 2 certifications, if they have, their ISO certifications, if they have redundancies, if they have a microservice, compartmentalized environment, technology environment, rather than a monolithic. Do you buy into that? Is that an accurate statement that not all are equally susceptible?
Yeah, I think I would divide it into two. Out of the 18,000 franchise dealerships, most of them are small, like 10 or 11,000, I think, are the 1 to 5 rooftops, dealerships.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Maybe even it's 12,000. So most of the car dealers should be aware of something which is very important in cybersecurity is their landscape is pretty small. They are a one rooftop dealership, and they should be aware of not the targeted campaigns. It's not like the CDK attack. The CDK attack for sure was a targeted, very
100%.
campaign, in simple words, again, without going into all the professional terms. You're not like that, okay? Like the big companies, they should really worry, and they have chief information security officers and teams and security teams and all that, and they need to be really good at it, okay? There's no doubt about that. But car dealers, depending on the size, need to follow a few simple steps. Again, people, process, and technology. It works. Really, it always works. So how do I think about it? People need to be very aware that the world is a dangerous place, and you have all these, software, training software that helps people be aware of these things that want to trick you. And today with generative AI, the level of sophistication of an email that you can get, because the generative AI they teach them how to write the email. You think it's from your boss, but it's not your boss. It's a generative AI. You need to be very aware of it. You don't click immediately on the link. You go into
I go to the email address.
Yeah, you go to the address and, what's that? That's very strange. That's all. Just don't click anything if you're not 100% sure. And usually after people click it, they say, I thought, but that's it. That's people.
Especially with a link.
No, don't press it.
That's writing you letters with links, people.
Yes, that's it. The second thing is, the process and the process of how you build your castle with redundancy, right? So it's about the redundancy and the connections and how these processes connect. And are you ready for something being out? Just be ready for it. Don't be surprised the morning it happens. Oh, we have a process for that. We're going to do a manual override for this. We're going to have a manual process, not a big deal. And then there are a few technologies that you should work with. And again, I would mention like all the multi-factor, two-factor, whatever. Today, I really encourage people to go towards like new age multi-factor authentication, because all of these MFAs and VPNs.
Oh, let's tell everybody what that is, though, Yaron.
A multi-factor authentication method, whether it's a one-time password that is,
because the traditional that people are familiar with is send something to my cell phone. It sends a 4 to 6 digit code, 8-digit code. You put that in. So are you saying something? Are you saying those or something beyond that?
Those are good, but right now the trend is going to much more sophisticated.
Like a key?
A key, biometric. Like when I work on my computer, every MFA I do, I need to put my finger on the computer.
Yeah.
So what's the big deal about it? The hackers figured out, because this thing has been going on for more than a decade, 15, 20 years almost, the 2FA, multi-factor, all these things in different forms. And the bad guys figured it out. They know how to interdict, social engineer you to give them your password, and then you send it to
or your cell phone number.
Yeah, they send it to you, but it's not sent only to you. It's sent also to another SIM card, which they duplicated somehow. Again, without going into too much, I'm telling you, I know how this thing works. I've been in that business. So you just need to understand that it's a very dangerous world out there and try to go into these technologies plus the awareness. The last thing that I would say to dealers is especially the dealer groups. The large dealer groups are huge targets. They are very lucrative and it pays off to hack them. So we have arrived to the day and age that these places need a level of sophistication of cybersecurity that starts with people, which is a security officer. If you have a 20, 30 group dealership, you need a chief information.
I totally agree. The first person, Yaron, I say this all the time, you're in charge of a 20, 30, 50 store group or bigger. The very first person I hire is going to be my IT specialist. And the days of just having somebody who has a minor certification or took a couple classes, that's over. The days of having your controller, CFO, be the admin of your system, over. We need to make sure that we have either one of two choices, in my opinion. You better have a big time IT security person, or you better have a big time partner. Do you agree with that? Third party partner.
100%. There are great MSSPs, what we call in the industry, managed security service, that I really recommend working with, because the advantage of working with them, including small dealerships, is that they have a wide view of all the market. They know the lessons learned. They hear the news. You can't do that, dealer.
It's not easy. That's right. Even if I was a small dealer, I would do it.
Yeah.
It's affordable. It's affordable. And it's not affordable not to do it at this point. Just not. I mean, you're talking about big stores, and I agree with you, but I was just sitting here thinking, if you're a single point store and you're selling the average of 125 cars, a month, 1,500 cars a year, that's still generating a ton of growth and has the opportunity to generate income. How much would you pay to turn that back on? I mean, for any of you that went through the CDK outage and you're a single point store, if this happened to your store alone, would you write the check system in your dealership back online or not? Of course you would, but it would be far better off to be able to have the right people around you. You wouldn't have a store without having a great financial partner. No way. You want to have a great partner in the fixed ops department. You want to have a great partner in the used car department. It's time, I think, Yaron, it sounds like you agree with me, to have a great partner on the cybersecurity side.
Yeah, right? That's team sport. You really need help. It's hard to do alone. Don't try to do it alone. Go to an MSSP. There are great ones out there. Anyone can reach out to me. I'll always recommend someone. No, I don't get anything from it. And the average claim, the average pay skyrocketed 500% between 22 and 23 to about $4 to $6.5 million per ransomware.
The data breaches went up 78% between 22 and 23.
I think, and now we're in 24. Really are scary. And
so people process, I got to ask you a couple quick questions. People, process, and technology, those three, I mentioned it earlier as it pertains to that CDK hack. Anything that companies like CDK should be doing differently, or anything that you think could have been done differently based on your knowledge?
I wouldn't, try. I have a huge respect to chief information security officers. It's one of the hardest jobs in the world.
I can't even imagine the stress that those people are under.
Oh my God. It is so, it is such a, it can be a really bad job. If you have a big hack during your tenure, it's just very hard to come good out of it.
What do you do if you're them coming out of it? You're somebody who's integrated with them. What do you do?
Oh, yes. The thing is this, again, I go back to people, process, and technology. I keep moving ahead. Like with Fuse, we work with an MSSP as well, and we're SOC 2 certified. And I just really think about the technologies that I use, and I really try to stay ahead of the market. I try to look at new technologies. I'll give you an example for large groups. There's a thing called white box cryptography. White box cryptography is sub-military grade cryptography. So it's not military grade, but if you are a 30 rooftop dealer group and the hackers are intercepting, that's what they do. They're intercepting all your communications because some of it is encrypted, but not high level encryption. And they know how to decrypt VPNs. VPNs are not worth anything anymore. It's just a bluff. And white box cryptography is very hard to hack. So if I am a multi-branch, I go to white box cryptography. That's one example. The second example is backups. There is cloud backup. That's one architecture that you can build and should build. And the second thing is on-prem backups. There are very high sophisticated systems that can actually back up your most important, what I call crown jewels. Like, think what you really care, you really want to work 24/7, 365 days, and make it work with the on-prem backup. There are very sophisticated systems that cyclically, continuously back up, and it doesn't matter when it falls. You press a button, and 60 seconds later, it comes back up. But it requires...
It's almost like somewhat same premise as a generator, right? When somebody loses electricity, you have a gas generator and the electricity goes out, house goes dark, and you hear this, and all of a sudden, 30 seconds later, the house is lit up again. Similar, Brian?
Yeah, that's a great metaphor. It's a data generator.
Interesting. Very cool. Well, listen, we've taken a lot of your time. You have absolutely delivered massive amounts of value. I'm really excited for you and your Fuse Autotech team as well as your clients, because it sounds like it really liberated them in this unfortunate situation that CDK had to deal with, and that they're still dealing with to a certain degree. And I'm super excited to see what happens over the course of the next year or two. My guess is ironically, just like when a client has a great experience buying a car, they tell people. And my guess is that dealers like GM, Lexus, like Walzer, Subaru, Walzer, Toyota, and others that are using this are probably sharing those same type of stories about what it's done to transform their environment, make them more efficient, more effective, more cost effective. It just sounds like there's just a tremendous amount of upside. And I have to tell people, is that, we don't have, the first time I really learned about Fuse, I'm not compensated in any way, period, not for this podcast, not for anything to do with Fuse, but sounds like it would be a very wise thing, any GM and any dealer, to look up Yaron and Fuse Autotech, that team, and just learn more about it, because it just sounds like it is a unique opportunity to perhaps differentiate yourself in the marketplace, streamline your operations, improve throughput, retention, and a lot of other areas of your business that I know are important to you. If you go to davidspisak.com, there are show notes, including show notes for this particular episode, but more importantly, how you can get in contact with Yaron, and I'll let you take it from there, Yaron. But listen, this has been so interesting. I literally can keep you on for another 2 or 3 hours, I'm sure. But at the risk of not wanting you to fall into a coma or miss out on opportunities to wow other clients, it's the right thing for me to wrap things up and let you go. But I just genuinely want to thank you sincerely, because this has been eye-opening. I'm beyond impressed with what you guys have been able to accomplish thus far and what your dealers have been able to accomplish during the midst of this really unfortunate outage. And we all wish CDK and their associates the best in recovering from it. Nobody there wanted this to happen, and nobody wants this to happen to themselves. So please, let's support the industry, support them as they try to come back to business as usual. But thank you. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, David. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you for your time and for the opportunity to talk about everything and about Fuse.
Well, it's a pleasure. For everybody who's given us your time, thank you as well. Really deeply appreciate it. Respect your time. And I'm hopeful that we delivered some major value. If you want to know more, feel free to reach out to me at davidspisak.com, on LinkedIn. And also, as I said, please reach out to Yaron with any questions you may have. Thanks so much. Look forward to seeing you all next time on the David Spisak Show. Thanks so much.
Happy 4th. Thank you.
Happy 4th to you all. Right.